So today we're going to be covering the rectus femoris, which is that main quad muscle that starts at the top of the hip, also known as the anterior inferior iliac spine, and it runs down into that patellar tendon, which goes over the kneecap and inserts down onto that shin bone or on the tibial tuberosity. So the reason why we're covering this today is when that rectus femoris gets tight, it can actually pull down on the hips, causing that anterior pelvic tilt and that crunching up of the low back, which can cause a lot of tension here and can contribute to low back pain. So we're going to go over a couple different techniques that we can use to relieve tension built up along the rectus femoris. So the first thing that we're going to do to relieve tension along the rectus femoris is we're going to roll it out. We're going to focus on two different areas. We're going to focus on the top and we're going to focus on the bottom. So we're focusing on that anterior inferior iliac spine, and then we're going to focus right above the kneecap, which is where it ties in with that patellar tendon. So in order to find that top spot, you're going to place your hand on the hip and you're going to come down right below that bony prominence. So that hard spot that you find on the hip, you're going to come down below it where it becomes soft. And that's where we're going to place the lacrosse ball for the first part. And then you're just going to roll over onto it and place a little bit of pressure. And then we're going to bend the knee, placing a stretch along the muscle to help further elicit a decrease in tension. Then the next spot that we're going to do is we're going to place the lacrosse ball right above the kneecap where that patellar tendon conjoins. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We can bend the knee to place a little bit of a stretch in the area while maintaining pressure there. Another thing that you can do with the lacrosse ball is cross the opposite leg on top to get a little bit of added pressure. For both of these spots, we're going to spend anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. If the lacrosse ball is a little too much for you, you can start off with the foam roller and get the same response. And for the foam roller, I'm going to focus on the edge of the foam roller rather than the middle of it, because that way I can get a little bit more pressure at the top of the hip bone. I'm just doing the same thing, bending the knee up, and if I need to, I can add a little bit of extra pressure. And then the same thing for the knee. So I can come down, placing it right over that patellar tendon. I can bend the knee again, and if I need more pressure, I can cross the opposite leg over the top. Now that we've relieved tension within the muscle, we're going to stretch out. We're going to stretch it out so that way we can elongate the muscle fibers back to their normal length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a stretching strap. I'm going to loop it around my foot, and I'm going to take the strap, bring it over my shoulder, and then I'm going to contract my glute to force the hip onto the floor so that way it doesn't pop up like this. If it pops up, you're not going to get nearly as good of a stretch. So I'm going to squeeze that glute, press the hip into the floor, and then I'm going to pull my heel as close to my butt as I can. And you should feel a stretch here in the front of the thigh. And we're going to hold this stretch anywhere from 30 seconds to 60 seconds. If that stretch is too difficult to perform on the floor, you can perform it standing. So the first thing you're going to want to do is find something to stabilize yourself, like a wall or even a countertop, and then you're going to reach back and grab your ankle. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring the heel up towards the butt until you feel a stretch in the front of the thigh. Again, don't let the hip come back like this. You want to try and keep the hips nice and square. In other words, try and keep the thigh parallel to whatever surface it is that you're stabilizing against, whether it be a wall or a counter.